This ends our business session, and now on to the celebration. Here's Melissa Prober to introduce Lisa Fishman.
Hello, I am Melissa Prober, and let me just finish unmuting one more person. Sorry, trying to do tech and talk at the same time. I think we're good. Hi, I'm Melissa Prober. For those who don't know me, I am the one who floods your inbox with emails, so you're either welcome or I'm sorry. Debbie, can you see me? Okay. I want to take this opportunity. Let me see, wait. Sorry. There we go. Okay. I want to take this opportunity to thank the outgoing board members. It has been a pleasure to work with you. And I also want to thank the continuing board members and the new board members. I am really excited to see where you take NCJW over the next year. But I am even more excited to introduce you to our special guest, Lisa Fishman. I first met Lisa just a couple years back at Highland Park High School. We were both involved in theater, me behind the scenes and Lisa on stage. We lost touch through the years, but through the magic of Facebook, we reconnected. And I always thought it'd be wonderful to introduce NCJW to Lisa Fishman, but geographically it just didn't work. She lived in California and now in New York, but thanks to Zoom, geography is no longer an issue. Lisa is a singer, actress, songwriter, recording artist. She has performed throughout the US and Europe. She performs pop rock music, jazz, blues, cabaret. She has starred in Off-Broadway and regional musical theater. She sings, she records. She's recorded with several of the top Klezmer bands. She's performed in her own Jewish musical act, the Lisa Fishman Jewish Experience. She performs for children. She's a voiceover artist. I won't go on, but there's a lot more. Pre-COVID, Lisa performed her own original music regularly at clubs throughout Los Angeles, New York, Washington, and Chicago. And you can learn more about Lisa on her websites, lisafishman.com and lisafishmanmusic.com. And I'll pop those links into the chat in a bit. Lisa was most recently seen as Bubby Seidel, AKA Grandma Seidel, in the Off-Broadway hit show Fiddler on the Roof in Yiddish, directed by Joel Grey. If you didn't make it to New York to catch a show, you may have seen Lisa here performing as the featured vocalist with Chicago's Maxwell Street Klezmer Band or Chicago's Modern Klezmer Quartet. So using the extent of my Yiddish, Lisa's gonna kibitz a little with us and share a couple songs. And if you have any questions for Lisa, put them in the chat and we'll try and answer them as time allows. So I want to welcome Lisa.
Hello.
Hello.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. And I'm sure everyone thinks it's nice to see you too.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Yeah, Lisa said I am from Highland Park, so you know you're all you're my homies.
So first, I just wanted to ask you about your journey so far. To me, Yiddish was the language my grandparents used to make sure we didn't know what they were talking about. Right. So how does a 21st century gal from the Chicago suburbs end up making a career in Yiddish music and theater?
It's a good question. I just thought it would be cool when I started it a couple decades ago. No, it all started in my early 20s. I had graduated college. I went to school on the East Coast at American University, also a year at NYU, came back to Chicago. And I was just doing a little bit of everything in music and theater. I was doing some of my own original stuff in English. I was starting to audition for theater. I was singing in a jazz group, blah, blah, blah. Cut to a cousin of mine was getting married, and she reached out to me and said, you know, because I'm a singer, I'd really love for you to sing with the band at my wedding. And she said, it's a Jewish band. It's this thing called Klezmer music, but don't worry, they can do anything, just bring charts. And I had never heard of Klezmer music before. The only Yiddish I knew was, you know, the Yiddish that most of us in our age group would know, Shana Punim, Meshuggah, that was about it. My father, when I was sick as a kid, said, "Let me feel your kepi," and I don't even know at the time if I knew that was Yiddish. So anyhow, I prepared a couple jazz standards to sing with the band, like as time goes by in my Funny Valentine. But meanwhile, when I got to the engagement and they first had the ceremony, and then when the doors opened for the reception, I was just blown away by this music. This is a local Chicago band. Probably most of you know them because they're called the Maxwell Street Klezmer Band. And they're probably, of course, the most famous Klezmer band in Chicago and the Midwest, and really known nationally and internationally. Anyhow, Lori Lippitt's and the Maxwell Street Klezmer Band were playing that evening. Big, I think, 10-piece arrangement that they had. I just was so moved by the music when the doors opened. I was just like, what is this? It just spoke to my soul. And, the truth is, who knows if it's because it's truly in my DNA, or if it's just that I just thought it was great music, but it just moved me. So anyhow, I sat in with them. I did my jazz standards, but at the end of the evening, Lori and I talked, and she said, "Would you ever be interested in learning a couple tunes with us?" And I said, "Definitely." And initially I would go to her house and just learn I would learn the songs kind of phonetically and by rote, and I would learn with the transliterations. I do know Hebrew letters because I was bat mitzvah, and Yiddish is technically written with Hebrew letters, but most people who speak it these days they read the transliterations with the English alphabet. So I was learning it like that. And that led to other work in the world of Yiddish music and theater. And at a certain point, I actually did start taking classes. And so I ended up singing with Maxwell Street for years, doing a kabillion weddings and bar mitzvahs and anniversary parties. And, I don't think I ever did a bris. People have asked me. But that's kind of how it all started. And then I studied with a woman in Chicago for a little while who's still based there, named Chana Feigl Turteltaub, wonderful teacher. And then that just led to all different things in Yiddish music and Yiddish theater. And I've kind of, through the years, kept one foot in that world, but then also gone into other things, back into my own roots, so to speak, of my own original music and the jazz and just the regular straight theater. But this music and this world of music, Yiddish music and theater, has always stayed with me. I'm very passionate about it, and I've kind of woven in and out of it through the years.
Cool. Why do you think Yiddish is all of a sudden in? It's the in thing. There's Fiddler in Yiddish. They just published Harry Potter in Yiddish, and
I know. And so crazy.
What was it? The Unorthodox show that was in Yiddish.
Right.
So why is it in?
I've been thinking a lot, and I'm going to try to give a brief analysis. Of course, I'm not, a sociologist, but I mean, first off, the Yiddish revival and the Klezmer revival, some people don't realize that started literally 45 years ago. It was back in the early mid-70s that a lot of these musicians, some of them based on the East Coast, like Hankus Netsky and a couple other people in Boston, New York, were finding their parents, the Jewish people, finding their parents or their grandparents' old 78 recordings and discovering these old recordings of these Yiddish, a lot of it was instrumental, all the old klezmer music that was recorded, and Yiddish music. And they were just really drawn to it. And because this was also the time after civil rights, when people were starting to become empowered again to get in touch with their own identity. Before that, of course, everyone was assimilating, especially the Jews after the war. After the first wave of immigration, in the early part of the last century. And then after the war, no one wanted to be affiliated with the diaspora and the Jewish ghetto. Yiddish wasn't something that was cool. It was something people were a little bit ashamed of, like the people of our grandparents' generation or other people's parents' generation who might be here. But anyhow, I think it was in the 70s, not only were they discovering these recordings, but it was a time when it was a little bit like they were one generation or two generations away already from feeling that shame. So this klezmer thing has been going on for decades. And why? And so, and it's taken off all over the world. But I think even in the last 5-10 years, I was thinking about the fact that people, are little by little, you know, you have the Women's March, and of course we have Black Lives Matter, and people are more and more, everyone wants to assimilate, but at the same time, there's this thing where we also want to like know where we come from and have a pride about it. You know, there's 23andMe and Ancestry.com, and so many people are kind of really discovering their roots. And so I think people of even the next generation down are kind of like discovering, who am I and where do I come from? And people with this Jewish background who don't have any association, a negative association with the old country, Eastern European Jewish culture, I think have this like discovery, because now already all this music and theater is being discovered. And now it's like, oh yeah, this is who I am. And they're discovering that there's this wealth of culture there. I mean, it's a real language. It's not a jargon that a lot of people think. It's a language with, you know, it's been around for over 1,000 years. There's songs, there's theater, there's poetry, there's literature, there's films. And I think, and now it's kind of like cool to be different. You know, the hipsters are kind of like picking it up. So I think it's a little bit of all of that. And again, what do I know? I'm just a girl who sings the music, but that's, you know, my analysis.
Well, I definitely wanted to ask you about Fiddler in Yiddish, and how did that happen? How did Fiddler in Yiddish happen, and then how did you get cast? And then tell us about your experience.
Okay, so try to make a long story short, because you can see I know how to talk, and I know we don't have that much time here. The National Yiddish Theater Folkspiele, which is based in New York and has been an organization running for literally like over 100 years. Obviously, it's changed hands and locations since then. It's been around forever. They've been producing works in Yiddish and sometimes in English with Jewish themes, whatever, for 1 million years. The artistic director of the theater has known about this Yiddish translation of Fiddler that was originally created back in the 60s, just a few years after Fiddler on the Roof came out. It was translated by an actor-director based in Israel named Shraga Friedman. They were already doing the show in Hebrew in Israel, and he decided, he was a real Yiddishist and, you know, Eastern European background. I want to say Polish, but I could be wrong. And anyhow, he translated it into Yiddish, had hoped it would take off there. It played only a couple weeks in Tel Aviv, and that was it. It sat for years and decades, but this artistic director, Zalman Mlatek of the theater, knew about it back then. He put in just an amateur production of it up at a camp, a Yiddish camp he taught at back in the 70s, but always hoped to do something with it. Anyhow, this 2 years ago, I think, you know, because of this resurgence of Yiddish and Yiddish culture, and the theater was also doing very well, getting a lot more and more attention. Some other shows they had done, one called The Golden Bride, an old Yiddish musical that they revived, Die Goldene Kala in Yiddish, which I was actually lucky enough to be in. I guess he just thought it's time, and he also was smart enough to know to put a big name with it. To give it more attention. And he reached out to Joel Gray to see, would you like to direct this? And Joel was he apparently always had a passion about this show. And he said yes. They were going to put it on for, I believe it was 6 weeks, if I'm correct. And suffice to say, the audiences just kept coming, and they kept extending. And soon producers came from the outside and saw the success and the potential bigger success and said, we want to take it to a bigger theater. And then they moved it after 6 months from the Museum of Jewish Heritage down in Battery Park up into an actual off-Broadway theater called Stage 42, the largest off-Broadway theater, 499 seats. We were 1 seat short of Broadway. And then it ran for another like 11 months up at that theater. And they were already, you know, audiences started to trickle down a little. So they decided to close it at the beginning of this year with the intention of starting a national tour later this year. We were supposed to go to China, funny enough, just before the whole COVID thing. And then that happened. But there's all these plans in the works that are, of course, on hold because of the virus. And there you have it. How I got involved, I auditioned. I flew in from Los Angeles and I auditioned. And they auditioned me for both for Golda and Yente, actually. I had so much to prepare. I've never prepared so much for an audition. I got Babette Seitel, which is Grandma Seitel, but I was lucky enough to understudy Golda, Yente, and Shandel. So I had to know all of those roles, which I have to tell you, my brain was exercised more in the last year and a half than ever in my life. It was honestly kind of stressful because you had to know not just all the lines for each track, but the choreography, the blocking. It was a little intense, but it was amazing. And the man who plays Tevye, Steven Skybell, is one of the greatest actors I've ever worked with. He makes Tevye his own in such a beautiful, heartfelt way, and the whole thing was just incredible.
Well, I have some more questions, people listening, feel free to use the chat if you have some questions, but I didn't know, did you want to do a song now, or do you want another question?
I think it's the perfect time to do this song that happens to be from the show. This one, I'm going to accompany myself on one or so of the songs. We'll see what we have time for, but this one I'm going to use, I'm going to have my live band here via karaoke. So I'm going to do, of course, a song that we all know and love, Sunrise, Sunset. I'm going to do it first in Yiddish, so you can all, if you haven't seen the show or ever heard it in Yiddish, you can experience it in Yiddish. And then I'll do it in English, and you can all sing along. I hope I'll get the volume right. And Melissa, feel free if you need to like point up or down with my accompaniment as I'm going, if because I don't know. I just, Is das mein Mädele, das Kleine? Is es das Jüngele, ich seh? Geht nur a Kopf schon der Wachsen, seinem See. Wenn is sie also schön geworden, wenn is ausgewachsen hoch, erst nach haben sie gespielt in Tag ein, Tag aus, Tag ein, Tag aus, das ist unser Leid. Skerende hat gegeben Blumen, und über Nacht wächst uns ein Bäum. Tag ein, Tag aus, Tag ein, Tag aus, das ist dein Bescheid. Läufen die Jahre noch einander, tragen sie Freude mit a Tränen. And now in English, join me if you know it. Is this the little girl I carried? Is this the little boy I played? I don't remember growing older. When did they? When did she get to be a beauty? When did he grow to be so tall? Wasn't it yesterday when they were small? Sunrise, sunset, sunrise, sunset, swiftly fly the years, one season following another, laden with happiness and tears.
wish we could turn on the sound for everyone because I'm sure you would hear lots of applause. That was so, so beautiful.
Thank you. It's a good song.
It is a good song. And it's so interesting knowing the song in English, hearing you sing it in Yiddish, and still being able to understand exactly where you were in the song. And
Yeah.
that was really cool. So Kathy Carmody asked, how do you learn all those parts at the same time?
Well, what I did first off, and I really had the disadvantage, I didn't really get real rehearsals as an understudy, and I actually came in as a replacement. It's a long story, but I was doing pretty much everything. I mean, I was learning the blocking pretty much with the stage manager, number one. First off, I literally would make recordings, reading the other people's dialogue and then pausing for a space for where my dialogue was. And then I would sit here in this living room. I won't pan right now, but, and I would sit and with the blocking that I learned and practice hearing my lines spoken by the other people and doing my lines. And as far as how I learned all the parts, honestly, you know, you learn one song or you learn 5 songs. You just work on each one. It's all memorization, you know what I mean? And it's drilling yourself over and over. And I always say to my voice students, this part, no matter how old you get, I'm just telling you, this part of the process really isn't fun. This is the tedious part. Like, it's, you know, like, but you just drilling yourself.
Cool. Let's see. There we go. Pre-COVID, it's been said that Fiddler has been staged somewhere just about every day since the 1960s. So why is it so popular, and not just Jewish audiences? Everyone loves Fiddler.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think because you've got like a whole bunch of universal themes that it deals with. First of all, you've got the thing about tradition and the younger generations breaking tradition. And it's just, probably happens every generation since the cavemen. The old cavemen were saying, ooga booga, why child no longer use, use whatever. I mean, seriously, I just think that there's always a generation gap. And as a matter of fact, there's a famous story that's been told throughout our show of a Japanese production, and the actor in Japan being so surprised that the show was so popular in the States because they said, but the story is so Japanese, so it's like, I think all cultures have this thing of the generation gap and the younger generations not honoring the traditions. And then, of course, you've got this situation where immigrants, people being either oppressed or cast out of their home countries, and religious or ethnic wars. So I just think, unfortunately, this part of it is that, again, since the beginning of time, I think you just have people dealing with that issue, or being a stranger in a strange land, again, dealing with oppression. Most people, at some point, most peoples have experienced that. So I think that it's just these very universal human themes.
Definitely. Another question or another song?
Whatever you think. Give me a question.
Give me a question. So now that there's COVID and the theaters are closed and everything's closed, so what are you doing now? What are you hoping to work on in the future?
I just joked in another Zoom thing yesterday. I said I'm planning to become an epidemiologist and infectious disease specialist, because I've learned so much in the last several months watching every single interview with Fauci and the whole gang. No, right now what I'm doing, especially now that we know that the theater thing really is closed down until at least January, I'm sure later than that, I'm really focusing. I happen to have my own like Jewish music act, and some of the stuff I do here, if we'll have time, a couple more. But one of the things I am focusing is trying to kind of plant seeds, even if it's not for the next 6 months, but things for next year, reaching out to JCCs and synagogues and stuff, because I have my own act, which I do old Yiddish songs, but sometimes with, you know, modern interpretations. I write some English lyrics, and maybe the next one I do, I can give you an example of that. So I'm kind of working on my own Jewish thing, doing a little bit of voice teaching when I can, and, you know, thinking about what else I can do to survive, especially if we don't get more unemployment through the end of the year. Just living on the dole. That's what I'm planning on doing. I'm kidding.
Cool. Do you want to sing a song?
Yeah, okay, so I'll do for you guys. This is an old Yiddish love song. So what I do is I sometimes take these old songs, but I kind of give them the, you know, my own interpretation. And again, sometimes I translate them. This is a Yiddish ballad called Ich hab dich zu viel lieb, and I love it because it's just so, it's so Jewish, and it's so full of pathos. I love you much too much is the title. It's one of the more popular songs in the world of Yiddish music. So if you know Yiddish music, you might know it's often done as a tango. I'm going to do a kind of rumba style, but then I did write some verses of my own lyrics. So this is, you know, an example of kind of stuff that I do with the old songs and also kind of making it my own. So this is Ich hab dich zu viel lieb. I love you much too much. I'll do it first in Yiddish and then I'll do my English. Okay. Ich hab dich zu viel lieb, ich trag auf dir kein Hass. Ich hab dich zu viel lieb, sie sein auf dir in mir Hass. Ich hab dich zu viel lieb, sie sein auf dir going face. I'm not your face, his face. Hold dear mein Leben, come back again. Mein Herz in meine Schone, ich bin krank, nur mein Gedanke nicht finden komme. Ich hab dich zu viel lieb, sein auf dir going face. Oh ja, nein, I love you much too much. I knew from the start I'd sacrifice my youth. You take away my heart. I love you much too much. Fool am I to stay? Well, when we don't know, then soon you'll walk away. I have so little left to give you. My spirit lies here hollow. If you go, then you should know I no choice but follow. I love you much too much. In spite of all the tears, please, darling, stay. I pray, don't leave me here. Oh, please, darling, stay. I pray, don't leave me here. Oh, I'm not your face. Ich weiß, ich hab dich lieb.
That was fabulous. I was chair dancing. I'm glad nobody could see me chair dancing. But
I love that. I love cheer dancing. Thank you. And thank you. I saw some. Thank you for the nice comment.
yeah, well, so yeah, you're pretty good because I've seen you do other shows. So you are pretty good at reading the comments and
Well, I did that one quite quick, but yeah.
So one of the people watching today is my mother. And so she asked a question. She wants to know, did you have a chance to fill in for each of the three parts you understudied?
Golda a bunch of times, which was such a pleasure. Yenta only once. And then Shandel, never uptown at the Stage 42 theater, but I did do her once or twice in the first chapter. And you know what? Thank God I got to go on as all those parts, because if I put all that work in, go on, man, I would have been so upset.
Yes. So Judith Maisel wants to know, who are some of your role models in the theater, past and present?
Oh gosh. Theater-wise, I mean, you know, I almost hate to mention people who are so cliche. Who doesn't love like Patti LuPone or Bernadette Peters, you know, as far as singer actresses. But someone that I've discovered recently who, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed now, I can't think of her name. I'm going to think of it in a minute. She's, oh my God, I can't think of her name. It's going to really bother me. I'll get back to you on that. But I would say those would be the two big ones. You know, I have like a weird mishmash background, and all I'm going to say is the people that influence me generally as a singing, acting, songwriter, artist person, it kind of runs the gamut. Like, if you just ask me who influences me as an artist, I would say everything from Katie Lang to Judy Garland to Nina Simone to Annie Lennox, Freddie Mercury, you know, kind of like a weird mishmash. So weirdly enough, I'm not like theater girl. Like, you know what I mean? I can't even think of this lady's name who I wanted to, her name. Anyways, I'll think of it. I'm going to Google it on my other phone here. So I'm going to get back to you on that. But, you know, I've always loved Bernadette Peters' voice, and Patti LuPone as an actress and as a singer. I mean, but again, I know that I could name someone more obscure and be cool, but, you know, whatever. I'm not that cool.
No, I love Bernadette Peters too, and Patti LuPone, and other people can't see, but I have the same cell phone case as you.
Oh, hysterical.
That's funny.
Googling this woman because she's very famous. I just can't think of her name. Anyways, okay. Where were we?
So my next question is a fun name dropping question, because I know that you got to meet some really amazing people doing Fiddler. I also know there were two people you were very sad that you missed those two. So time to drop some names.
Okay, so first, as far as names, the person who I was just going to mention is Christine Ebersole, who's
Christine Ebersole.
You know, it's like I always knew her name, and because I haven't lived here, I didn't really go see her and stuff, but through looking for audition songs and just great performances online, I've been discovering her work, and I just love her, and I kind of think I feel like she's not as well known as I mean, in the Broadway world she is, and people do also know her from TV, but that was who I was thinking of. She just really moves me when I watch her performances, and I love her voice. Okay, so name dropping here. Well, first off, I recently did a little show for the National Yiddish Theater Folksby, and I had already printed these up for that. So I'll just very quickly share because they're fun pictures. This was me with Joel Gray last year on his 87th birthday. And this is with Sheldon Harnick, the man who wrote the English lyrics, who's still around. I mean, he's wrote Sunrise, Sunset, you know, all these amazing songs. Okay, so we had like everyone came to the show, and I'm not saying this to brag, you brought it up, and it was the coolest thing ever. A couple of the people that blew me away the most, I mean, first off, Patti LuPone did come. Carol Burnett came. Alan Alda came. That, for me, I don't know why. Growing up with my dad watching MASH, I loved meeting Alan Alda. Billy Crystal, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the two people that I missed when I was sick. Don't ever miss a performance, because I missed Baryshnikov one night, and I also missed Hillary Clinton. But just the list goes on. Ben Vereen came. Christine Ebersole was one in Chicago. Oh, I did not know that. Ben Vereen, when I met him, it was like the weirdest thing. I just started crying. I didn't even mean to. It was like, because Ben, it just even gives me chills thinking about it. You know, you grow up watching musical theater films and like Ben Vereen. So it just was, Itzhak Perlman. I mean, just, you know, it just went on and on and on, and especially because they knew Joel and because the show just garnered so much attention, and it was a beautiful, beautiful production. And if it tours, everyone, I highly recommend it. Joel directed it in a different way than you're used to it, and it brings the heart out of it, of the stories and the relationships, in a way that people aren't used to. It pulls at your heart even more. It's just a gorgeous production. So there you have it. I mean, I could think of more, but I actually can't right now because my brain, I'm starting to, have 50 and over brain.
Oh, I know that. Yeah, I hope it tours, and I hope it tours here. And maybe to all who's listening, check your emails sometime in the future, and maybe we'll be able to do a group show. So there's another question, and I'm going to mispronounce his name. Do you know Martha Schleim singing it? Oh.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, I do, because when I first got into Klezmer, I listened to all the old recordings, and I remember listening to Martha Schleim. I mean, there's certain names, there's just the recordings of Moshe Oisher and Aaron Lebedoff and all these people who were, were lucky enough to have the recordings. I don't know her personally, and I don't think she was around in my time, but yes, I do.
Should we have another song?
And I'm assuming, because I'm kind of keeping my eye on the time, should I assume it's time for the last one? Because I know originally I was going to do 4, but I know I talked too much. So should we, is it wrap up time?
I'm looking at Debbie. We're good. If you want to do 2 more, I think everyone would love to hear 2 more, even if we go a couple minutes over.
Oh, well, okay. Okay. Well, then I will dedicate this song, and thank you for whoever just wrote that. I said Kathy, I think she wrote, "Your energy is great." Thank you. Well, that's what happens when you have lots of coffee. Okay, capo. Let me just put a capo on my guitar. This song, if you know Yiddish songs, this is one probably you know. And I dedicate it to Melissa's mama and all Yiddish mamas and Yiddish papas. And if you're not lucky enough to have your mama around, let's just think about our beautiful Yiddish mamas and papas and their souls and how they touch our lives. And without further ado, one of the most popular Yiddish songs. Ay, Jiddische Mama, es gibt nichts besser auf der Welt. Ay, Jiddische Mama, oi, wie bitter, wenn sie fällt. Wie schön und lichtig ist ein Haus, wenn die Mama ist da. Wie treurig finster wird, wenn Gott nimmt dir auf allem Abend. In Wasser und Feuer wollten sie gelaufen vor ihr Kind. Nicht halten ihr Teier, das ist gewiss die größte Sinn. Oi, wie glücklich und reich ist der Mensch aus Gott, als eine schöne Methode geschenkt von Gott. Nur ein Altitschke, jiddische Mama, my Yiddish mama. I need her more than ever now. My Yiddish mama, I long to kiss her wrinkled brow. I long to hold her hand once more as the days gone by, and ask her to forgive me for things I did that made her cry. She never cared for fashion styles, her jewels and her treasures, she held them in her baby smile. Oh, I know that I owe all I am today to that beautiful lady so old and gray, to my beautiful Yiddish mama. Oi mama, oi mama, oi mama.
Yay, that was beautiful and fun. So not compose, arrange? Did you arrange the second half of that song?
Yes.
That was
yes. I mean, you know, what happens with me with Yiddish songs, unless people want to hear it the old-fashioned, I don't mean old-fashioned, but the way that people are used to hear it. It that way too, but it tends to, when I learn the songs, it kind of goes through, you know, my brain and my soul, and then it comes out, you know, at least the style. You know, I have this, oh, thank you, Barbara. I have this, you know, I have like a real weird mishmash. I've actually thought of calling my show Fishmash, because
that's a good name.
I have influences I grew up on the singer-songwriter, so I've got that folky thing that, you know, and then I've got the rock background, you know, growing up when we grew up, and then I've got the theater and cabaret thing and jazz. I didn't do anything really jazzy tonight, but sometimes I'll jazz things up. So like my show is always kind of, you know, goes through all these different styles. Thank you, Tracy. Kind of seeing some of the comments.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw, Eric wants to know when you're coming back to LA.
Oh, well, actually, it's funny because I am going to visit sometime soon. I'm going to do, like, because there's no, I mean, I'm probably just going to kind of traipse around the country for a little bit, because I can't actually audition for stuff right now. I mean, I'm looking for things online work-wise, you know, but I probably will visit soon. Oh, that's my brother. Oh, I have friends here and family. I'm so touched. Thank you, family and friends. And Jessica, great to see you. So I'm going to go there later this summer. Oh, thank you, Sherry. So yeah. And as far as, you know, but yeah, sometime later this summer. I talk a lot.
No, it's wonderful. It's great.
And I'm just getting warmed up, folks.
So I think we unfortunately have to wrap up. So how, until end of COVID, when you come back and perform in Chicago, as we would all like to see, how can we find you to hear more of your music?
Thank you for asking. You did mention 2 websites. Again, because I'm all over the place, I have like different websites. The one, if you want Jewish, is lisafishmanjewishmusic.com. Just like it sounds, lisafishmanjewishmusic.com. I actually had a little sign here. I used this at another performance recently. I don't know if you can see it, but anyways, Lisa Fishman Jewish Music, just like it sounds. And again, if you go to my other websites, I think I have links or directives to the other ones, but that's where my Jewishy stuff is. I have like different, I'm like schizophrenic. I have different personalities, so I've got different sites. I do. And if you're Instagram, I really don't use Instagram these days. I never really got into it, and I have a feeling the generations here aren't into it anyhow, but my Instagram page is Oi It's Fish. Just FYI, Oi It's Fish. Just
Oi, it's Fish. I'll write that in the chat. So,
thank you. You're awesome.
Do you want to give us one more song before we have to say goodbye to you?
Yeah, if you have time for it.
Oh, I know the song that you're going to do, and we will make the time for it because it's great.
Okay. So anyways, I want to introduce you to someone. She's my cousin. She, you know, people say she reminds them a little bit of this lady here. You know, you remember her, Carmen Miranda? Yeah, they say she's a little bit like her, but she's on the Jewish side. She moved down to Buenos Aires. And, well, I'm going to, excuse me, because I'm going to just fix my camera here, because to do this number, I actually had to practice this ahead of time. I'm losing the accent right now, I realize. And part of my, hold on, I just lost the prop. Okay. Anyhow, I'm going to introduce, she'll be here in just one moment, excuse me. I'll be right back. Talk amongst yourselves. Okay, coming right back. Hola! Was machst du? How you doing? Okay, so what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to sit down here. I just want to say hello to everyone. My name is Carmen Meshuggah. How you doing? It's so good to see everyone. So anyhow, I'm just going to do, I can't really see. Can you see my whole hat? You can see it? Okay, thank God, because thanks Gott, as we say, of Yiddish. So anyhow, I'm having such a wonderful time here tonight in this wonderful conversation we're having. And, but he had a little nosh just beforehand. And, wait, hold on, where's my music? This is very difficult because this is a multimedia event. I don't have the band I normally have. So excuse me, but I'm just getting a little bit verklempt here. And music, please. Excuse me. Oi. Oi, 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 I think I ate too much. Oi, you're hibernating in my tummy. Oh, you can see her. Oi, oi, I was only going to have a nosh, but everything turned out to be so yummy. Oi, 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 excuse me, while I reps. Oi, don't stand so close, I had the herring. Oi, 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 I really hate to kvetch, but for you to be so close, you must be daring. Ate all the herring, ate all the schmaltz. Oi, what a chazer. Oi, wegewalt. Oi, 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 I think I ate too much. And this time I meant to be so frugal. Oi, I swear the next time not a thing I'll touch. Except, of course, a piece of Bubby's kugel. Oi, 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 oi. Oi, 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 they. Oi, oi, I think I might be sick, so clear the way. Oh, what's here? Oh, a little tray. Oh, I know I said I was full, but I mean, with a bagel and a schmear, I mean, what can you do? Delicious. I live on the Upper West Side. There's so much good deli food here. Maybe just one bite of herring and wine sauce while I'm at it. I don't know how I'm about to sing. I only meant to have one dish, not eat a school of the filter fish. Oi, 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 I think I ate too much. Just in case by now you couldn't tell. I hate to be a downer or a such and such, but frankly, this hard quarantine was hell. Oi, 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 oi. Oi, they smear. What's that you say, dinner at 6? I'll see you there.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here with us. And
That was great.
turn things over to Debbie now.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa Fishman. What a wonderful performance. I did not know what to expect, so I did not know how funny you were. So that was great. I wish this was in person so Lisa could hear the applause and our appreciation, but you can hear it from me. So that was really great. Luckily